Hi, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes to make sure that everyone who has, or a couple more moments to make sure that everyone who has signed up is able to log on. That looks about like we have everyone in here. All right, so I want to welcome everyone to our Lunch and Learn today. Today we're talking about how to sign up for the to serve at a vaccination site. I just want to let you know that our conversation is being recorded today and will be available on the upon request and also on our COVID YouTube site. My name is Danielle Burrell. I serve as the college's Chief Risk and Compliance Officer, and I also have the opportunity of serving as the vaccine coordinator on our COVID operations team. We also have on the call Kelsey DeVoe, our Director of Health Services, and our testing lead on the same COVID operations team. And in our roles, Kelsey and I have been individually volunteering at local vaccination clinics throughout Central Massachusetts. And I don't want to speak for Kelsey, but I have found this experience of volunteering to be absolutely incredible, both in terms of the opportunity to serve others and really to play an active role in the pandemic recovery process. And based on our experience in this, with this program, we wanted to offer an opportunity to others in the Holy Cross community to learn how they can also take part in this program if you're interested. So Kelsey will first provide a high-level overview of vaccines, including the latest information from the CDC on do's and don'ts once you get the vaccine. And then I'm going to hand the microphone to Lois Lunowitz, who serves as the vaccine coordinator at the Worcester Medical Reserve Corps. And Lois is going to explain the process about how you sign up to become a volunteer and what to expect once you've signed up and what it's like to serve as a vaccine clinic. Please note that we've closed down the chat, but we've opened the Q&A to allow people to ask questions. I'll monitor the Q&A and make sure that we are able to answer those questions within the time allotted. And I guess at this point, I would hand it over to Kelsey. Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. As Danielle said, I'm Kelsey DeVoe, Director of Health Services. Just wanted to give a quick overview on the vaccines. If you choose to volunteer with a vaccine clinic, you want to make sure that you understand these sort of basic informational things that may be asked of you by folks that come to the vaccine clinics. And then also for your information, once you're vaccinated, you can make sure you're aware of all these things. So there are 3 COVID vaccines available in the United States currently: Pfizer, Moderna, and J&J. Pfizer and Moderna are 2 doses split by 3 or 4 weeks, and Johnson & Johnson is a 1-dose vaccine. A question we get a lot is which one's the best one, and the answer is the best vaccine is the first one that's available to you. All are safe, effective, and all reduce your risk of severe illness and hospitalization from COVID. You're not considered fully vaccinated until 2 weeks after your second shot, or 2 weeks after your 1 J&J shot, because that one is just the one. So you need to remember that that the vaccine is not instantaneous. It does take a couple weeks to reach its full efficacy. Being vaccinated does not prevent you from catching the virus. It does protect, the studies were done to see if it protected you from severe illness, from hospitalization, and from death. Those were the things they looked at with the studies. And the vaccines are extremely effective in preventing those things. It does not mean that you can never get COVID. The CDC has updated their recommendations if you're fully vaccinated to sort of give you some guidelines on what you can and can't do once you're fully vaccinated. We are still using really cautious recommendations until we know more. Here at Holy Cross, we've actually seen fully vaccinated individuals test positive for COVID. The good news is they didn't have any symptoms, they didn't get sick. and none of their exposed close contacts got COVID. So that's a good thing, but there's still a lot that we need to learn. So being cautious is still important. The CDC has a website that explains what you can do when you're fully vaccinated. And I actually find that the New York Times has a really great infographic on this, and you can click through. So it asks you questions about the event that you're going to do. You can click through and say, are there going to be folks who are unvaccinated? How many people? Those sorts of things. So that's a really interesting one to look at if you're not sure if what you're about to do is safe while you're vaccinated. What you can do once you're fully vaccinated, you can gather with other fully vaccinated people without any precautions. You can gather with unvaccinated people from the same household unless any of them are at high risk for COVID. You can travel without quarantine or testing restrictions. And you don't need to quarantine if you're exposed to COVID and you're fully vaccinated. What can't you do once you're fully vaccinated? You should still avoid large crowds. You should still follow social distancing, mask wearing in public, and you should still get tested if you travel internationally. You should still monitor for symptoms of COVID and get tested if you're sick. And like I said, you can use the CDC guidelines or that New York Times article, the interactive article, if you're unsure about the event that you're about to attend. There's still a lot that we're learning. So what are we still learning? There's a few questions outstanding. The first big one on many people's minds is how effective is the vaccine against the variants? You may have heard of the different variants that have come about in the last couple months. Early data shows it's fairly effective against some variants, but less for others. So until we know more, caution is always important. The big question is, can you still spread COVID if you're vaccinated? Again, with this, early data is positive that if you're fully vaccinated and have COVID, that you may not have enough virus in your system to spread it. But until we know more, the mitigation measures we use, such as masks and social distancing, are still really important. And then the last outstanding question, how long will the vaccine protect us? Evidence shows that it's lasting, fairly long. Right now, the recommendations are at least 6 months, although it's likely to be longer. Again, we just need more data. This is all fairly new. So with these unknowns, being fully vaccinated does offer you some freedoms and some new protection, which is great. But we still recommend being cautious around those who are unvaccinated, around those who are high risk for COVID, and in public with large gatherings and those sorts of things. I'd love to stop here if there's any questions. I don't see any in the Q&A, but if you have any questions about anything with the vaccine, happy to answer those questions. I didn't really get into the side effects and those sorts of things, but if there's any questions, you can drop those in the Q&A.
Thanks. Thank you, Kelsey. Yeah. All right, turning it over to Lois. We're interested in hearing about the Medical Reserve Corps and how we can volunteer at vaccine sites. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. I'd like to just take a couple of minutes to give a little bit of history about the Medical Reserve Corps. We actually came into being following 9/11. It is a federally recognized and established program. And the reason was because at that time, individuals and organizations from all over the country descended on New York and Washington wanting to help. And it was quickly recognized that there just wasn't a way in the middle of an emergency to identify if individuals were who they said they were, to credential them, or to run background checks. So it was decided that if they had an organization, a recognizable organization that they could depend upon to have already done that work, that it would be so much better. And so the Medical Reserve Corps was born, and this was in 2002. The Medical Reserve Corps was actually the the brainchild of the medical community, which is why it's called the Medical Reserve Corps. And that has caused us a few concerns over time, because many individuals feel, oh, I don't have a medical background, I can't volunteer. But that's not true, because we've actually found that depending on the situation, we need more non-medical volunteers than medical volunteers. So it's a little bit of a misnomer that we continue to work through today. The Medical Reserve Corps has units all over the country and American territories. Right now, we're at 761 Medical Reserve Corps units and over 200,000 volunteers. So in Massachusetts, we have 36 units. I don't know the total number of volunteers in Massachusetts, but growing by leaps and bounds every day. And that is thanks to the interest and the support of so many of our Massachusetts residents who have recognized a need and want to help out. We actually, the Medical Reserve Corps in Massachusetts, most of us are affiliated in one way or another with local public health. And that actually, for most of us, is our mission, is to support local public health. And so the Worcester Regional Medical Reserve Corps actually supports 38 individual local public health departments in Massachusetts. And within Central Mass, we have 2 other Medical Reserve Corps that make up the balance, and that's Greater Grafton and Wachusett Medical Reserve Corps. We also try to partner with other local entities such as emergency management, our hospitals, and other organizations, because we're all really working toward the same common goal. Well, I'm going to get into this in a minute, but to become a volunteer, we actually have a platform that we use called Mass Response. And Mass Response allows us to not only gather information about our volunteers to help make it easier for us to deploy you, but also to run background checks and to confirm licensure, so that when we're sending individuals with licenses out to volunteer, we can confirm that they are who they say they are and that their licenses are current and valid. We have, since mid-December, been supporting the Southbridge Vaccination Clinic, which is run through Harrington Hospital and currently supports 17 communities in the southwestern part of the state. We have also worked very closely with a small private clinic in Worcester, which worked for about 2 months from mid-January to mid-March. We've recently also partnered with the Greater Grafton Medical Reserve Corps to support a vaccination clinic out of Uxbridge that covers about 12 communities. I recently learned of another regional vaccination site that's actually located in Palmer, which is just outside of our borders, but it also supports about 12 communities, most of which fall under Worcester Regional. We've also been called upon to work with community health clinics that are located in the Fitchburg-Leominster Garden area. We've worked with local Worcester Public Health as needed. And so the number of opportunities to participate, both as a medical volunteer and a non-medical volunteer, increase and change every day. How to volunteer, I have actually sent a protocol to Danielle, and she's going to distribute it following the webinar. But basically, you would go on to massresponse.org. You would create a profile. You would go to organizations, and you would choose Worcester Regional, but you're allowed to choose up to 3 in units within the state of Massachusetts. So we recommend that you choose units that are close to where you live and work or go to school, so that it's going to be an easy commute for you. The one caveat that does cause us a few concerns is that in the state of Massachusetts, the Quarry Board requires that applications be submitted with a signature. And you can't do that on Mass Response, and it's not always clear. So we do ask that you print the query form from Mass Response, or you can reach out to me and I will send you one that you can print. You need to sign it. And what we have done since March of 2000 because Massachusetts is in a state of emergencies, is we have waived the need for a notary to sign this. So as long as you send your query application and your driver's license or passport, some form of legal identification, we can go ahead and process you and get you set up so that you're free to volunteer. In terms of what to expect as a volunteer, every site is run a little bit differently, but generally you'll receive some type of a brief orientation. Your position that you've registered for will be explained to you. You'll usually be told who you'll be working with and whatever operating policies are present within that vaccination site. One of the things that we have found was really useful for us, especially in the beginning, before vaccines were truly widespread, was that as an MRC volunteer, you were entitled to be vaccinated, provided there was enough vaccine available at the site for you to receive it. More and more of you are now vaccinated, although the population I'm looking at now probably is not. But that is an option if you volunteer, provided the site that you volunteer at does have enough vaccine. And if you've been following the news at all, you know that we've had some ebbs and flows with the availability of vaccine in Massachusetts, as we have across the country. So that's been really important. And it's not necessary for you to be vaccinated, but I want you as a volunteer to feel comfortable. And so if you don't feel comfortable going into a clinic and volunteering your time without a vaccine, then please feel free to ask for a vaccine when you get there. Lastly, one of the trainings that we usually offer, but we have not done so recently, is called Incident Command. And that really just refers to how you operate within the bubble of the vaccine clinic, knowing who to respond to, knowing who to ask questions of, and knowing what your particular role is within the clinic. And whenever there's a question, you can always feel free to reach out to me or to reach out to the individuals who are running the clinics at the site. So that is just a really very quick, very brief overview of the MRC. Volunteering, yes, we can always use more volunteers, and I am open to questions.
Lois, we have a question from a student asking if international students can volunteer.
So yes, you can use your passport as a form of identification, and we do have a way to get you through the background check process.
Okay, I'm not sure, but I don't know that every international student will have, I guess they'll have their own passport. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Thank you. If they have any, do you anticipate them needing to reach out to you directly, or will they be able to just go through the process online by filling out that form?
I think it would be best if you're an international student to reach out to me directly so that I can make sure that when you submit everything to the state, or actually I can submit it for you, that my counterparts at Mass Respond understand that you're an international student and the best way to handle that.
Okay, thank you. I will post all of our contact information in the chat in 1 minute. Lois, there's another question asking, is there a minimum requirement? Is there a minimum number of hours or days you have to commit to when you sign up?
So officially, no, but we all of our sites like continuity. And so if you can plan to volunteer at least a couple times a month, that would be great, because then you're familiar when you get there with the process and how it works and the people that you're working with. If you can do more, great, but at least a couple times a month would be really helpful.
Lois, can you talk about the shifts, how they're different times?
So every clinic runs slightly differently. The clinic that I have the most knowledge of is the one in Southbridge, because they've been operating for so long now. For their shifts are set up typically 7 to 11, 11 to 3, and 3 to 7. And they have, however, been very gracious relative to their flexibility. So there is an option if you're signing up for, say, 11 to 3, but you can't get there until 11:30, but you can stay till 3:30. After you put your information in and save it, and there's actually a comment screen that comes up, and you can actually post the hours, your specific hours in there. And they've been very good about working with that.
Yeah, that's been my experience as well. There have been a couple of shifts that I have not been able to make it until an hour past the requested start date, and they've been fine with that.
Mm-hmm. I think as long as they know, they're able to shift their coverage accordingly.
Right. And there's a couple different sites that I've had the opportunity to serve at that have had a couple evening shifts from 4 to 8, for example. So the hours are really all over the place. Once you register and are given access to the portal, there's, I don't know if it's an exaggeration to say, hundreds of different volunteer slots to sign up for.
Absolutely.
Lois, go ahead.
There are weekend opportunities as well. Southbridge is now open Saturday and Sunday. The clinic we worked with in Webster was also a weekend clinic. And I know that with Uxbridge, they have a satellite clinic in Upton that's open on Saturdays. So if the week during the weekday doesn't work for you, there are opportunities on the weekends as well.
Lois, do you know which site is closest to Holy Cross?
So I have to be honest and tell you that I have not had a lot of interaction with Worcester area specific clinics. And so I'm really not in a good position to answer that.
But they will find out when they sign up and then get to the portal, correct?
So we don't have a general volunteer portal that I'm aware of. I am familiar with site-specific portals. I have tried to reach out. I do have a Worcester link, but I don't know much about who is actually running that clinic, but I can certainly provide it.
That would be great. Thank you very much. Going back to international students, some international students do not have a passport. Is there a different kind of documentation that they can use?
I think you have to have some kind of legally recognized identification to prove that you are who you are. The ones we typically use, of course, are driver's licenses and passports. If there are other types of identification, I can certainly ask our team at Mass Response if it's something that they can work with.
Thank you. I also listed your email address in the chat, and so they can reach out to you as well.
Perfect.
Somebody asked for assistance from getting from the college to the vaccination sites. Is there assistance for students who don't have cars? At this point, we have not figured that out. This is just one of several programs that students can volunteer at vaccination sites. I certainly will raise this question with our COVID team, although I know there is some limitation in transportation due to the continued need to engage in social distancing. So I don't have an answer for the question on transportation from the college to the vaccination sites, but it's come up a couple times. So I know that that is something that we need to look at. Somebody asked that since we're nearing the academic year's end, can we set this up for next academic year? And I should say this is a rolling program that's taking place. It has, if I didn't make it clear in the beginning, this is the program that Lois runs is outside of the college. It's a separate organization through the state. So Lois, that's actually a really interesting question. And Kelsey, how long do we anticipate the vaccination program going for?
So hopefully everyone will have received their vaccine over the summer. I think that clinics will continue past that to make sure that anyone who wasn't vaccinated is able to get vaccinated. There's also potential that the vaccine may last a year, and we would need a booster next year, perhaps like with a flu shot. So then these clinics would be an annual thing. So I definitely think if you sign up with the Mass Response site, you can see those volunteer opportunities. And if you're not able to make any of them right now, you can still continue to check as time goes on for other volunteer opportunities in the future.
And Danielle, just a quick comment, and that is that the Medical Reserve Corps has actually been functional in this area since 2006. And so the fact that we're staffing COVID-19 vaccine clinics certainly has become our most public thing that we're doing, but we've always supported local flu clinics. And we participate with shelters that have opened up. Last year in March, we supported 4 homeless shelters in the city of Worcester, emergency shelters that are often opened for storm events, cooling and warming shelters as well. We work with other organizations such as Salvation Army and American Red Cross to support them for other types of events. And we also participate in community events that are not necessarily related to emergencies or disasters. So, so there really are many different types of opportunities. It's just that COVID, as you all know, has kind of been at the center of everything for the last year.
That's a really good point. There will be opportunities to volunteer through this program beyond COVID. And so speaking of volunteer opportunities, many of our students, we have a very, very active service population. A lot of our students take part in service programs organized inside and outside the college. And a number of these require a background check. My understanding of the process is that you will need to conduct your own background check, right?
That is true. And that is because the way that the regulations in the state of Massachusetts work relative to the quarries is that each organization is only entitled to view results of quarries for their group. So for example, even though you might have been quarried through your work, I'm not allowed to see those. So unfortunately, and I know that that depending on how active a person you are, you may end up in the course of a year having to submit several quarry applications. And unfortunately, that's just the way it works within the state.
Thank you. I think that we have answered all the questions in the Q&A, but we'll stay on the line for a couple more minutes just to make sure there aren't any additional questions. And again, we've listed in the chat general questions on vaccines. If you have a question on the vaccine, you can reach out to Kelsey. If you have questions on volunteering through the Medical Reserve Corps or that process, please reach out to Lois. Her email is in the chat. I put the link to the registration site, and then 2 links to the infographic that Kelsey referenced out of New York Times, and then a FAQ that we really like on the vaccines as well, coming out of New York Times. Seeing no further questions come up, I will thank Lois. Thank you very much for coming to Holy Cross and sharing with us your experience and how to help facilitate the volunteer process across the state. And Kelsey, as always, thank you for your continued efforts around responding to COVID on campus with our students.
It's been a pleasure to be here with all of you, and I thank you so much for the invitation.
All right, everyone, take care. Thank you.
Thank you.